I never thought I'd be the kind of mother-in-law who interferes in her daughter's marriage, but here I am, lying awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling of my bedroom in Portland, Oregon, knowing something terrible is about to happen, and feeling completely powerless to stop it. My daughter Emma is about to lose everything she's worked for. And the worst part, she has no idea that the man sleeping beside her every night is planning to destroy her life. Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand how we got here. My name is Catherine. I'm 52 years old, and I've always prided myself on being a reasonable woman. I raised Emma on my own after her father left us when she was just 7 years old. It wasn't easy working double shifts as a nurse while trying to give my daughter a stable childhood, but we made it work. Emma grew up to be everything I'd hoped for: smart, independent, compassionate, and driven. She graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in architecture, landed a prestigious job at a firm in Seattle, and by 30, she'd saved enough to buy her own small condo. I was so proud of her. Then she met Kyle. If you've been following this channel, please hit that subscribe button because stories like this one need to be heard, and your support helps me keep sharing real experiences from real people. Trust me, you're going to want to hear how this unfolds. Kyle seemed perfect at first, I'll admit that. He was charming, attentive, always showing up at family dinners with flowers or wine. He worked in finance, or at least that's what he told us. Something about investment consulting. He drove a nice car, wore expensive suits, and talked about his portfolio and his business connections with the confidence of someone who'd made it. Emma was smitten. After years of focusing solely on her career, she'd finally found someone who seemed to match her ambition and independence. They dated for a year before he proposed, and I watched my daughter transform into this radiant, hopeful version of herself that I hadn't seen since she was a child. The wedding was beautiful. A small ceremony in the Cascade Mountains with about 60 guests. I gave a toast wishing them happiness, and I meant every word. I wanted nothing more than for Emma to have the love and partnership I never had. But even then, on that perfect September afternoon, there was something nagging at the back of my mind. The way Kyle's family was so vague about his work, the way his mother changed the subject whenever anyone asked specific questions about his career, the way his father seemed almost uncomfortable during the reception, drinking more than he should and avoiding conversation. I pushed those thoughts away. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was projecting my own failed marriage onto my daughter's new beginning. I promised myself I'd be supportive, that I'd give Kyle the benefit of the doubt. That was 2 years ago. For the first year of their marriage, everything seemed fine. They moved into a beautiful townhouse in the suburbs of Seattle, the kind of place with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows that Emma had always dreamed about. She continued thriving at her firm, winning awards for her designs, getting promoted to senior architect. Kyle seemed supportive, always posting about her achievements on social media, calling her his brilliant wife. I visited them once a month, and every time I did, the house was immaculate. The fridge was stocked with organic produce, and they seemed like the perfect modern couple. But around month 14, I started noticing changes. Small things at first. Emma stopped talking about going out with her work friends. When I asked about her college roommate, Sarah, who she used to see every weekend, Emma just shrugged and said they'd grown apart. She seemed tired all the time, even though she insisted everything was fine. Kyle started dominating conversations during my visits, talking over Emma, answering questions I'd directed at her. When I pointed this out gently, Emma defended him, said he was just enthusiastic, that I was being too critical. Before I continue, I want to remind you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. This story gets darker, and I need to know that people are listening, that someone out there might have advice or similar experiences to share. Please, join this community. The first real crack in the facade came 6 months ago during a Sunday brunch at their place. I arrived early, let myself in with the key Emma had given me, and I heard them arguing upstairs. Not just disagreeing, but really fighting. Kyle's voice was harsh, accusatory, using words I won't repeat here, but that made my blood run cold. He was berating Emma about money, about how she was selfish with her income, about how she needed to contribute more to their shared future. I heard Emma crying, trying to explain that she was already paying for most of their household expenses, that she didn't understand what he meant. When they came downstairs 10 minutes later, Both acted like nothing had happened. Emma's eyes were red, but she smiled and said she'd been chopping onions. Kyle was overly affectionate, kissing her temple, calling her baby, but there was something performative about it, something that made my skin crawl. I pulled Emma aside while Kyle was grilling outside and asked if everything was okay. She insisted it was just stress from work, that they were both under a lot of pressure. She begged me not to make a big deal out of it, said every couple fights and that I was overreacting. I wanted to believe her, but a mother knows. A mother always knows when something is deeply wrong. Over the next few months, I started paying more attention. I noticed that Emma had stopped wearing some of her jewelry, pieces I'd given her for milestone birthdays. When I asked about it, she said she was being more careful, didn't want to wear expensive things every day. Kyle had a new watch, though, something flashy that must have cost thousands. I noticed that Emma's car, which had been nearly new when they got married, was developing problems she said they couldn't afford to fix, while Kyle had just upgraded to a luxury SUV. I started asking questions, gentle ones, trying not to seem like I was prying. How were their finances organized? Did they have a joint account? What were their long-term plans? Emma's answers were vague, defensive. She said Kyle was handling most of their financial planning because it was his area of expertise, that they were consolidating their assets for future investments, that I wouldn't understand the complex strategies they were using. That's when I knew something was very, very wrong. I need you to stay with me here, because this is where everything started falling apart. If you're finding this story compelling, please subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the conclusion. I promise you, what I discovered next will shock you. 3 months ago, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. I know how that sounds. I know it seems like a massive invasion of privacy, like I was betraying my daughter's trust. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Emma was in danger, that Kyle was hiding something that could destroy her. The investigator's name was Marcus, a retired police detective who came highly recommended. I gave him what little information I had and asked him to look into Kyle's background, his finances, anything that might explain what was happening. What Marcus found made me physically sick. Kyle's investment consulting business didn't exist. The company he claimed to work for had no record of his employment. His LinkedIn profile, which boasted about 7 years of experience in wealth management, was entirely fabricated. The professional photos, the recommendations, the impressive job history, all lies. Marcus discovered that Kyle had been living off a combination of credit card debt, his parents' money, and increasingly, Emma's income. But it got worse. So much worse. Kyle had been systematically manipulating Emma into giving him access to her finances. Over the past year, he'd convinced her to add his name to her bank accounts, to take out a home equity line of credit on the condo she'd owned before their marriage, to cash out part of her retirement fund for what he called a once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity. That money, over $200,000 of Emma's hard-earned savings, was gone. Kyle had funneled it into various schemes, including a failed cryptocurrency venture and what appeared to be gambling debts. Marcus showed me documents, bank statements, credit reports. My daughter, my brilliant, accomplished daughter, was being financially abused by the man she'd trusted with her heart and her future. And she had no idea. I sat in my car outside Marcus's office for an hour after that meeting, trying to figure out what to do. If I told Emma everything immediately, would she believe me? Kyle had isolated her so gradually that she might think I was the one being unreasonable, trying to sabotage her marriage. I needed proof she couldn't deny, but I also needed to move quickly because Marcus had discovered something else, something that made my blood run cold. Please, if you're not already subscribed, do it now. What I'm about to tell you is the reason I can't sleep at night, the reason I'm reaching out to all of you for help. Kyle was planning to divorce Emma. Marcus had found emails between Kyle and a lawyer discussing the best strategy for maximizing his settlement. They were discussing Emma's assets, her condo, her retirement accounts, her future earnings potential, like she was nothing more than a business opportunity. The emails talked about how long Kyle should stay in the marriage to establish himself for alimony claims, how he could argue that he'd sacrificed his own career to support Emma's advancement, how they could position him as the financially dependent spouse despite the fact that he'd been stealing from her all along. The plan was meticulous and cold. Kyle intended to file for divorce in about 6 months, right after Emma was likely to receive her annual bonus. The emails discussed how he'd been creating a paper trail to make it look like he'd been the primary homemaker, taking care of domestic responsibilities while Emma focused on work. There were even discussions about him claiming that Emma had been emotionally abusive, that her success had made her controlling and dismissive of his needs. It was all a con. Their entire marriage was a con. I confronted Emma with everything 2 months ago. I brought the documents, the emails, everything Marcus had found. I thought the evidence was irrefutable, that my daughter would finally see what had been happening to her. Instead, she asked me to leave. She told me I'd crossed a line, that I'd violated her privacy and her marriage. She said I was jealous of her happiness, that I couldn't stand seeing her succeed where I had failed. Kyle stood behind her the whole time, his hand on her shoulder, looking at me with this expression of false sympathy, like he was sorry I was so delusional. Emma hasn't spoken to me since. She blocked my number, blocked me on social media, told other family members that I'd become obsessed with destroying her marriage. Some of them believe her. Why wouldn't they? Kyle is charming and convincing, and I'm the bitter divorcee mother-in-law who can't let go. But I know the truth, and I can't just stand by and watch my daughter lose everything. This is where I need your help, where I need your advice, because I'm running out of options and time is running short. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, because I need to know there are people out there who understand what I'm going through, who might have insights I haven't considered. Here's what I know that Emma doesn't. Kyle accelerated his timeline. Last week, Marcus informed me that Kyle met with his lawyer again and they're planning to file for divorce within the next month, possibly the next few weeks. Something spooked him. Maybe my confrontation with Emma. Maybe he's worried that I'll find a way to expose him. And he's decided to act faster than originally planned. Emma is about to be blindsided by divorce papers and a legal battle that will drain whatever resources she has left. I've tried everything I can think of. I've sent Emma letters through mutual friends, begging her to just look at the evidence. I've tried to contact her at work, but she had security turn me away. I've reached out to her closest friends, but Kyle has managed to convince most of them that I'm unstable, that I'm harassing them. I even considered going to the police, but Marcus explained that what Kyle has done, while morally reprehensible, doesn't clearly violate any laws. Emma gave him access to her accounts willingly. She made the financial decisions even if they were based on his manipulation. Proving financial abuse in a way that would hold up in court is incredibly difficult, especially when the victim doesn't believe she's being abused. I've thought about showing up at their house, about forcing my way in and making Emma listen. But I'm terrified that will only push her further away, will make her more convinced that I'm the problem. I've thought about trying to contact Kyle directly, about threatening to expose him publicly. But I worry that would only make him move faster, that he'd find a way to turn it around and make me look like I'm the one causing problems. If you're still watching, thank you. Please subscribe because I'm going to need your support through whatever comes next. I'm going to need to know that I'm not crazy, that other people can see what I'm seeing. The worst part of all of this is lying awake at night, knowing that my daughter is sleeping next to a man who is planning to destroy her, and there's nothing I can do to protect her. I raised her to be strong and independent, to trust her own judgment, and now those very qualities are being used against her. She can't believe that she could be manipulated because she's always been so careful, so smart, so successful. She can't accept that she made a mistake in trusting Kyle because that would mean accepting that she missed all the signs, that she let someone in who only ever saw her as a mark. Every night, I imagine the moment when she'll get those divorce papers. I imagine her confusion, then her shock, then her devastation as she realizes what's been happening. I imagine her going through the financial records and seeing how much is gone, understanding that the life she thought she was building was just an illusion. I imagine her needing her mother in that moment, and I won't be there because she pushed me away. And I imagine Kyle walking away with a significant portion of her assets, moving on to his next victim, never facing any real consequences for what he's done. 3 days ago, something happened that made everything even more complicated. I got a call from Kyle's mother, Linda. We'd never been particularly close, but we'd always been cordial at family events. She asked to meet me for coffee, said she had something important to discuss. I almost didn't go, assumed it was some kind of trap. but curiosity got the better of me. Linda looked exhausted when she sat down across from me at the coffee shop in downtown Portland. She ordered tea she didn't drink, and then, with tears in her eyes, she told me that I was right about everything. She'd known for years that Kyle had problems with money and honesty. He'd stolen from them multiple times, had run up debts in his father's name, had been bailed out of various schemes and failed businesses. They'd thought marriage would change him, that love would make him want to be better. Instead, they'd watched him target their daughter-in-law, and they'd been too ashamed and too afraid to intervene. Keep that subscription coming, because what Linda told me next changed everything about my situation, and I'm still trying to figure out what it means. Linda said that Kyle has done this before. Not marriage exactly, but long-term relationships where he systematically exploited women financially. Before Emma, there was a woman named Jennifer in Chicago who he lived with for 3 years. By the time Jennifer discovered what was happening, Kyle had maxed out credit cards in her name, taken out loans using her identity, and disappeared with about $50,000. Jennifer tried to press charges, but Kyle's parents paid her back and convinced her to drop it. Before Jennifer, there was someone else. And before her, another woman. Emma is just the latest victim in a pattern that goes back almost a decade. Linda was crying openly by the end of our conversation. She said she and her husband were drowning in guilt, that they'd enabled their son's behavior by always covering for him, always protecting him from consequences. She said they'd tried to talk to Emma before the wedding, but Kyle had threatened to cut them off completely if they said anything. They'd been hoping that this time would be different, that their son really had changed, but they'd watched history repeat itself and they couldn't stay silent anymore. She offered to talk to Emma with me, to tell her everything. She offered to testify if it came to that, to provide documentation of Kyle's past behavior, to do whatever it took to help my daughter. It was the first real hope I'd had in months, but it also raised impossible questions. Would Emma believe Linda? Would she think this was all some elaborate conspiracy? And even if she did believe us, would it be enough to stop Kyle's plan? Linda and I are supposed to meet with a lawyer next week to discuss our options. We're trying to figure out if there's a legal pathway to protect Emma, if we can somehow freeze assets or alert the court to Kyle's history before he files for divorce. But the lawyer has already warned us that it's complicated, that Emma is an adult who has made her own financial decisions, and that intervening in someone's marriage, even to protect them, has serious legal and ethical implications. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. Marcus called me yesterday to say that Kyle met with his lawyer again. The divorce papers are being prepared. It could be days now, maybe a week or 2 at most. I don't know what to do. I'm paralyzed by the fear of making things worse, but also terrified of doing nothing and watching my daughter's life implode. Every instinct I have as a mother is screaming at me to protect her, but she won't let me near her. She thinks I'm the enemy when I'm the only one truly on her side. Please, if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. I need your perspective, your advice, your stories if you've been through something similar. Leave comments telling me what you think I should do. This is where I need to hear from all of you. Do I respect Emma's wishes and step back, even knowing what's about to happen? Do I try one more time to reach her, risk her hating me even more? Do I go public with Kyle's history, expose him on social media or to his employer, even though that might make me look vindictive and crazy? Do I work with Linda and the lawyer to find some legal intervention, even though it might be too late? Or is there something I'm not seeing, some approach I haven't considered that might actually work? What would you do if this was your daughter? What would you do if you were in my position? Lying awake every night knowing that someone you love is about to be destroyed and you're powerless to stop it? I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking that I need to let go, that Emma is an adult who needs to make her own mistakes and learn her own lessons. You're thinking that by interfering, I'm taking away her agency, treating her like a child who can't manage her own life. And maybe you're right. Maybe the most loving thing I can do is step back and be ready to catch her when she falls, rather than trying to prevent the fall altogether. But how do I do that? How do I stand by and watch my daughter lose her home, her savings, possibly even her career if the stress and betrayal derail her the way these things often do? How do I let her go through that pain when I might be able to prevent it, or at least minimize it? The truth is, I don't know if I'm the hero of this story or the villain. I don't know if I'm a protective mother or an overbearing one. I don't know if my actions are driven by love or by my own need for control, my own unresolved issues from my failed marriage. Maybe I'm projecting. Maybe I'm seeing danger that isn't as severe as I think it is. Maybe Kyle really does love Emma in his own dysfunctional way, and maybe they can work through this without my interference. But I don't think so. Everything I've learned, everything Marcus found, everything Linda confirmed, it all points to the same conclusion. Kyle is a predator, and Emma is his prey, and the trap is about to spring shut. Last night, I drove past their townhouse at 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about what's coming. The lights were off, and I imagined Emma sleeping peacefully, unaware that her world is about to end. I sat in my car for almost an hour, trying to gather the courage to go knock on the door, to try one more time to make her listen. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't face another rejection, couldn't bear to see her look at me with that mixture of anger and pity that she had the last time we spoke. So I drove home, and I'm sitting here now, recording this, reaching out to all of you because I have nowhere else to turn. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear what happens next, because this story isn't over. Something is going to happen in the next few weeks that will change everything. Either Emma will discover the truth and I'll be vindicated, or Kyle will succeed and my daughter will be destroyed, or something else entirely will occur that I can't even anticipate right now. I need to know that people are listening. I need to know that when this all falls apart, there will be a community here that understands what happened, that can bear witness to this tragedy so that maybe, somehow, it can help prevent it from happening to someone else. But mostly, I need your advice. I need you to tell me what you would do in my place because I am out of ideas and out of time. Should I make one final desperate attempt to reach Emma? Should I try to contact Kyle directly and confront him with what I know? Should I go public with Linda's revelations? Damn the consequences? Should I trust the lawyer to find a legal solution? Or should I step back and prepare to pick up the pieces when everything inevitably falls apart? What would you do? What should I do? Please, tell me in the comments because I am drowning here, and I need help. This is my story, or at least the part of it I can share right now. This is my nightmare, my impossible situation, my worst fear as a mother come to life. And I'm sharing it with all of you because I don't know where else to turn. Because maybe someone out there has wisdom I don't have, experience I haven't lived through, perspective I can't see from where I'm standing. So please, subscribe to this channel. Join this community. Help me figure out what to do next. And if you've been through something similar, if you've watched someone you love walk into danger they refuse to see, tell me how you handled it. Tell me if you succeeded or failed, if you have regrets, or if you do it all again the same way. Because right now, I am a mother-in-law who can't sleep because of my son-in-law's ignorant plan, and I don't know how this story ends. I don't know if I'll be able to save my daughter or if I'll lose her forever in the attempt. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or making a terrible mistake. All I know is that I love Emma more than anything in this world, and I can't just stand by and do nothing, even if doing something costs me everything. So what would you do? Tell me, please. What would you do in my place?